Hello folks, this is David Hurley of EasyChessTips.com, your pub chess bluffer, chilling out today, Sunday 29th of September 2019, with hot coffee in my man cave here in Hiroshima. And I'm reporting now on the 6th game out of 7 in last week's Hiroshima Open Tournament, in which I was pitted against a fellow Hiroshima player, Mr. Furukawa, who is ranked in the upper 1600s and is an experienced tournament player and a very careful player too, who favours the King's Indian defence, which is all very good intelligence. I was against him as white, and I anticipated that he would play against my d4 opening, the King's Indian, which indeed he did. And here is how this game panned out. Now, we were both on 2 points, so we kind of expected to be facing each other on the Monday morning, the last day of this tournament. And so I opened with d4, and indeed we see the build-up to the King's Indian defence here. And this game, it turned out to be quite a long and interesting game. It's one of my better performances, but I'm up against very careful opposition. So there's the classic d5 advance. The knight moves back to e7. I castle, and we have a bit of maneuvering. And then this is my first idea. It's a pretty simple idea, and my opponent could see exactly what was on my mind here, to move my knight into this hole here, this unprotected square, temporarily unprotected. If I can get my knight into that square, and the square remains unprotected, then or undefended, then I have a nice pin here, while also looking at the bishop over there. I have a nice fork, a knight's fork against the queen and the rook. Now, Mr. Furukawa saw that obvious plan and was equal to it. However, it's always good to see your knights advancing up the board. And here is how he responded. He moved, as Lichess is recommending, his knight to f6, which means the bishop is now covering that e6 square. I then advanced my f-pawn, f4. That caused some discomfort in my opponent, and he decided to counter by trying to usher away my knight with his h6 move. I responded by taking the pawn to counterattack his knight. He takes my knight, I take his knight, he takes my bishop. And he takes my knight, with his bishop. It gives me a small but significant advantage. However, the advantage chops and changes in this game. I bring my rook into the center. I was a bit surprised to see the king advance, but what he's doing, I realized, is opening up a little avenue here for an attack down the h file. And so, how did I meet that threat? Lichess is recommending I either move my queen or my c pawn. And what did I do? Or the bishop. So I indeed moved my queen across, following that initial idea of Lichess, giving my bishop some support on this diagonal here. There is an obvious answer. Lichess is proposing to advance the pawn down so that I'll have to move to kick my bishop off that diagonal. But my friend, my opponent, he is concentrating on building something up on the h file, I think, and so he moves his knight across. When he moved his knight across, the small advantage was restored to me. At this stage, the game seems quite complex to me. I wasn't quite sure what move to make. Lichess really does like that the pawn take, the e takes f5, but I didn't do that. Instead, I advanced my c pawn to see if I could break up the center. Possibly I was looking at this barrage of my queen and rook. But to be honest, I wasn't sure what I was up to. And finally, we get in the advance of the F pawn, kicking my bishop out the way. I move my bishop up, and we have the exchange of bishops and a check by my queen. And the check is blocked, so there's a possible queen exchange. Now, Lichess doesn't think a queen exchange here is a good idea. I have this very small continuing advantage, and in this situation, it would be better to keep the queens on the board to avoid that swap off. But I know that he is a stronger player than me, and he's a very consistent and careful player. So I wanted to simplify the situation. So I swap off the queens, and I was surprised that he took back with the king. It kind of maintains my advantage. I think if he had taken back with the recommended take, we get back to, well, we're back at equality. So I was a bit surprised to see that move. But his idea is to advance the king down into the center, as we will see. I then swap off pawns here. And this is where I lose the initiative. I lose the advantage. I'm continuing with my basic idea of simplifying this game. So I offer to trade bishops, and my opponent continues with his idea, which is to bring the king down here into the center, and I swap off bishops. Now, I don't think this was a great idea at all. I'm a bit too fixated on simplifying this game. Here you see we have a small advantage, but this idea of simplifying simply loses me the advantage. What it does is it connects the rooks up here. It places this rook on a nice open file, and so I've given away my advantage. Incidentally, if I move my knight away, this pawn here becomes unprotected. So I don't do what Lichess recommends. Instead, I seek to prop up the knight with some extra support. But you can see my advantage is slipping away. I mean, black now has a significant advantage in this situation. He advances his knight. I bring my F rook to support the E pawn, expecting to move my knight away at some stage. I mean, we have here a double attack on the E pawn. This is now the center of operations with the knight and the king, defended by my knight and my rook, with some pressure on my knight. Quite possibly this pawn can come down and add to that pressure. He moves away, so I'm not sure if that was a surprise to me at the time or not. I forget, but the pressure is on this pawn, and it's not a recommended move by Lichess. You can see Lichess is recommending piling on extra pressure on this pawn by bringing down the rook. But instead of doing that, pressure is released, and you can see the impact. Although he still has an advantage, the advantage has been reduced by this this move of the knight out to h5. He's perhaps looking to come in here. I'm not quite sure what was on his mind at this stage. I move my knight away because some tension has been released from the center. I want to reroute my knight. However, the problem is in doing that, I completely open up this file for the rook. But that move is not made. Again, there's another move which actually takes the places the advantage back to gives the advantage back to white. The problem is in these games, it's quite hard to at my level at least, it's quite hard to realize that perhaps the advantage has come back with this move. The move looks quite threatening. It looks as if with that pawn on the 6th rank backed by a rook up here, it looks as if I could be in some trouble, but in fact it's a move that delivers the advantage back. The pawn can be blocked simply by the knight, which is the ideal pawn blocker. The recommended move is knight to f2. Did I do that move? No, but instead I liquidated the pawn, and we get the swap off here. I was quite happy with this swap off because it gives me that nice pawn chain in the middle. And Lichess says now we're back to complete equality again. the knight comes in, my knight comes in, the rook comes down, aiming to pick up a loose pawn down here, but I can get in a check. The king comes down, the king is pushed away, and we're still in equality. This knight move of mine takes away the equality. It's a basic attack on the rook, but the rook is simply, the rook you would have thought would simply take the pawn. But, oh yeah, this was a major mistake on my part, because we have this loose pawn over here, and if the knight takes, then we have check coming in here, which is indeed what happens. And I begin to usher my king away from danger, but a pawn is gobbled up. The advantage is now firmly in my opponent's gift, or rather the advantage is his. And we have this series of checks here. But now I counter with checks of my own. It was quite a battle. And at this stage, I'm seeking to find a way through for my pawns. And there it looks like I've got my pawn in a good position. His pawn comes down, but advantage swings back to me. Now, this is the last time as we're entering the late stages of the game. Lichess has this nice move, which I didn't see. Instead, I moved up a pawn, which is really not contributing to the game, to my game at all. And it takes the advantage away from me for the last time. He's able now to advance that pawn. This is, I'm not sure what I was thinking at this stage. I was just trying to shore up the left side of the board, as it were. But we have this advance down here, which is critical. I should have addressed it. But I think what I was trying to do was build up a base for my knight to operate over here. But these two moves were completely wasted. So I lose the initiative. And from that, I lose the game. Here we have a check. I move up. The knight comes in now, covering the home square, as it were, for the pawn to promote. I move my knight across. We have a check. I bring my king down, but it's too much. It's too little too late, because we have this move here. And that, my friends, was the end of the game. I decided there's no point fighting on here, because I can't prevent black from gaining a queen. So it was a very enjoyable game. It was quite a lengthy game. And as you see, there was quite a bit of toing and froing in the middle. So I'm quite pleased on the whole with my performance. But there are definite weaknesses in my middle game that I still need to work on and address. Okay, folks, I hope you've enjoyed that video. So we're into the sixth game. I still only have 2 points, and my Hiroshima colleague has now 3 points. And we're into the last game, and I will make a video about that shortly. That's all from me for now. David Hurley, EasyChessTips.com.